Have you ever had that feeling trapped anxiety? You know, the feeling of being trapped in life, the feeling of being stuck and depressed. A Course in Miracles does a great job of helping us get over feeling helpless and how to escape the darkness. The feeling of being trapped and feeling helpless stems from thoughts from an illusory inner dialogue that goes on within us called the ego. The ego haunting you about being incomplete and lacking, giving you a scarcity mindset is what the ego likes to do because the ego only knows about lacking types of ideas. Hello, everyone. This is James Nussbaumer, and I'm the author of a great book series that begins with The Master of Everything. It's a story of mankind in the world of illusion we call life, and it's on sale everywhere books are sold. And this is the first book of an ever-developing series. The first 3 books are out right now, and we're going all the way up to 16 so far in my writing. But your thoughts, let's get back to this. Your thoughts lead you to believe no matter what direction you take that you are doomed. It most often appears from being afraid to escape darkness and shift toward the light. A Course in Miracles asks us to answer this simple question: do I want the problem or do I want the answer? In previous videos and blog articles, which I have linked together at my website, and I'll tell you about that in a moment towards the end, how to access that. But in those previous videos and articles, I've discussed being indicted by a grand jury over a foolish securities violation, and a warrant was out for my arrest, and that I would be sentenced to 10 years in prison, and why staying calm under pressure when all hell breaks loose is so important. Harboring the feeling of being trapped and unable to sleep that night, tossing and turning while the obvious was flooding my mind. The police were looking for me. I was trying to stay away from them to clean up some unfinished details before I had to face the problems of the county jail and all that court case kind of stuff going on. So the obvious was there right in front of me, and I knew that sooner or later I had to let them just take me away or go turn myself in. But it was flooding my mind seriously, and I looked over at the bedside table to see the red light on my digital clock. The numbers said 2 a.m. Yes, 2 o'clock in the morning. I got out of bed and I wandered to the French doors that went out onto the deck, and I glanced down the slope in my backyard that led to the quiet lake that I lived on. And the moon, my bedroom, the French doors, I was out on the deck, was on the second level, and it was looking down towards the lake. It was just a beautiful sight that night. The moon, the full moon, it was a full moon that glistened and glowed over the calm, glass-like water. The moon's light just reflecting off the water. And it soothed me so much. It soothed that feeling of being trapped. A moon like this always sent peace through me most of my life. And I even remember as a child seeing the moon and what a glory it was to me. And it always showed me how to escape when feeling helpless. The serene view was enough to keep my eyes on the water, and as an incessant ringing in my head alerted me to the thoughts of the police who would soon be pounding on the door. Thinking how to escape was pointless. I would say to myself, what's the point of continuing to go on anymore with this charade of a life? I was about ready to end it all. These dangerous types of feeling trapped anxiety thoughts just were running through me. Let's talk about why we often are feeling helpless at times. Still gazing down at the lake, I continued to punish myself with guilt, and the feeling of being trapped, it just increased within me. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I noticed a circle of ducks in the water near the boat dock, right up to the shore down at the end of my property line. And they were looking up the slight incline to the house where I was standing, and it seemed it was odd too that these ducks at that time of the day in the darkness were out on the lake. But even odder, it appeared that those mallards were looking directly at me. I felt them looking right into me. They seemed to swan back and forth like this, you know how ducks will do. And as they paddled near the dock, well, keeping a circle form, they were just paddling around in a circle. And it seemed that as they swan, they were looking right up at me, like they were inviting me to something. And they were watching me as I watched them. It seemed as though they were aware of my presence and the feeling of being trapped. It seemed like they knew what I was going through. A Course in Miracles teaches us perfect perception can merely show you what is capable of being wholly shared. The starry night was warm and beautiful and was getting me through feeling stuck and depressed. So I put on my bathrobe, my house coat, and slippers to walk down into the yard and down the slope near the dock at the lake. It was a warm evening. Sure enough, these ducks were staring. I mean, they were glaring and staring right at me like they were aware I was feeling helpless. Certainly it was strange, but of a peaceful nature as I considered these creatures of God simply just maybe stopping by perhaps to say hello to me. I picked up a twig and tossed it into the water, and they paddled away. But even as they slowly streamed away, the ducks seemed to be turning their heads and looking back at me until they faded out of the darkness and into the glow of the moon. Let's talk about feeling stuck and depressed. I sat on the dew-soaked grass the early morning the early morning dew, because it was midsummer in Ohio, beautiful night. And then I sat on the dew-soaked grass and continued to stare out over the lake, which was my friend for helping me how to escape. For years I had known this lake and I had caught many fish there. And in fact, when I was a kid, a section of my property had been a fishing lot owned by my parents. And before that, an uncle and aunt had owned the property. So, and many years earlier, back to the 1940s, my grandparents, on my mother's side, my grandparents had owned the property adjacent, and it was where my mother and her sister had spent much of their childhood on the lake, fishing, swimming, and boating. The property was passed out of the family for several years until I recently purchased it, along with a new house built by the previous owner, and then he sold and I bought the home. Many would say, what a coincidence this was, Jim. And I would say to myself, or was it really a coincidence? You know, thoughts like these and my memories of the lake were overshadowing my immediate pressures of feeling helpless. And I decided to lie down on the grass and just gaze into the starry moonlight sky until I dozed off. A cat nap I would allow myself, I would say, hoping to rid the feeling of being trapped, I thought. The Course in Miracles further states, you will not remember change and shift in heaven. You have need of contrast only here in this world. Okay, so what about feeling trapped anxiety thoughts? What about those anxiety thoughts? Well, then I entered into a dream that had only two characters, which were two different reflections of myself, each with a different shape and size, as though seen through a carnival mirror. You ever see that wavy carnival mirror? You know, sometimes depending on the angle you look at it, where you're short and squatty, and then another time you're lean and skinny, but it's all animation and it's just fun to look into. It seemed as though I was looking into a carnival mirror, and one of me was the real me. Had a tall, lean shape with a narrow neck and narrow head, with an animated face, of course, as the carnival mirrors do. And the other me was a short, fat, squatty me with a round face and a head that resembled that of like a sumo wrestler, if you will. The real me projected the feeling of being trapped as real and being thrown into a dungeon and sentenced to remain there for the rest of my life. The dungeon was dark and musty, and the only time I saw anyone was once a day when the other me A massive, unpleasant guard, the sumo wrestler type, opened the heavy steel door and placed a plate of food on the floor. He then would shut the door and go away, and that would intensify the feeling of being trapped. I began to rot in the dungeon for years, and I thought I was going mad. Finally, I made a decision to let go of the feelings of being trapped. I would rather die trying to escape than spend another day in that damn dungeon. Well, let's talk for a moment quickly here. How to escape those thoughts of being trapped. My plan was to wait behind the solid steel door for the guard to bring me food. When the guard opened the door, I would attack him. That was my plan. Because the other guard, who was me, was so strong, I, the prisoner, the other me, was sure he would overtake me and kill me. But I was fine with that, because I said to myself I was better off dead than continuing on with the feeling of being trapped forever in misery and in darkness. I positioned myself behind the door, and I reached over and braced myself against the door handle. When I touched the door handle, something strange happened. The door handle began to turn. The weight of my grip made the handle move, and the door cracked and creaked open, making a kind of a little creaky noise. It wasn't locked after all. I didn't know what to do, so I stepped forward and opened the door a little bit further, and it made another loud crack and creak, screeching kind of noise. I looked into the hallway and saw the guard looking directly at me. The other me, the guard, looking directly at me. This was strange, since the guard was the other me, and also frightening. The guard had a firm look on his face, but stepped aside as I, the prisoner, walked through the door and right out of the dark dungeon and into the light. That was it. There was nothing to it. That simply, I was free. I was free of the feeling of being trapped. Hey everyone, if you've enjoyed this article, please click below and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you'd like, please subscribe to my Everyday Miracles Mastermind newsletter. And the link to that is in the description box of this YouTube channel down below. That will take you to the article version of this blog. And at that article version of that blog, you will see plenty of opportunity to show you more about my Everyday Miracles Mastermind newsletter. And if you're already at my blog site watching this, then you know that that link is there in many locations for you to check on the Everyday Miracles newsletter. And in the Everyday Miracles Mastermind newsletter, what we do is, it's a place where you and I, you the reader and I the author, we bring our mind together for self-success and a better life. And I hope you decide to start living in this world by overcoming the feeling of being trapped in life, or perhaps feeling stuck and depressed. I wish the best for you, and God bless.